No one knows why the Tyranids keep some humans alive, but they do. The chamber awakens before he does. The walls shift first, rippling with slow contractions, each movement pushing air thick with moisture across his face. The stench is immediate, sour mucus, rot, the acrid tense of bile. It clings to his lungs like smoke. His eyes snap open and he gasps, though the air itself feels wrong, too heavy, too wet, like drinking slime instead of breathing. He tries to sit up, but the chamber does not allow it. His back is stuck to a surface that pulses in time with something larger than his own heartbeat. A membrane stretches across his chest and limbs, translucent, glistening, alive. The more he thrashes, the more it tightens, as though the chamber itself is aware of his movement and does not approve. The sound comes next. Chitin scraping on stone, mandibles clicking like blades sharpened in the dark. The chamber is not silent. It never is. Beneath the constant wet breathing of the walls is another noise, a steady pulse, deeper than a drum, like the slow circulation of blood in an impossible body. The entire space is alive. He realizes then that this is not a prison in the human sense. It is an organ. His name is Deron Kale, though that hardly matters anymore. Back on Coronia Hive, he was worker in Dent 34 Gamma, a Hab-born machine loader in the manufactorum. His life was measured in shifts and quotas, in bells and sermons. Even misery had rhythm. Even hunger had structure. The Imperium promised one thing to its lower citizens: routine. Routine that kept them bound, obedient, silent. But here, routine has dissolved into nightmare. There are no clocks in the hive's bowels, no administratum, clerks, stamping time cards. Only the constant thrum of flesh and the knowledge that every second is borrowed. He turns his head, the only part of his body not bound, and sees others. Dozens, maybe more, arranged in uneven rows across the glistening chamber, each pinned to the walls, each encased in the same translucent film. Some twitch in restless sleep. Some sob quietly into the damp air. Others do not move at all. He cannot tell if they are dead or dreaming. The walls cradle them regardless, as though life or death makes no difference. A shape stirs in the shadows near the far end. The membrane around it splits with a wet sound, and a figure spills free, collapsing onto the slick floor. The man tries to rise, but his legs buckle, skeletal and trembling. Before he can crawl more than a few paces, something in the darkness moves. A skittering of claws, a hiss that is not meant for human ears. The man is dragged away, screaming, his voice rising, breaking, and finally cutting short with a sound like flesh tearing. The walls shiver in response, contracting in a rhythm that is almost pleased. The sound reminds Deron of lungs inhaling after holding breath too long. He does not scream. He knows the chamber listens. He remembers rumors whispered in the manufactorum back on Coronia Hive before the Tyranids came. Prisoners taken, not killed. Citizens who vanished into the dark when the swarms descended. They eat everything, the overseers said. They do not take slaves. It was supposed to be reassuring. If nothing is spared, then at least death is certain. At least you are not left alive to wonder. But the lie burns now. He is proof of it. Something drips onto his face from the ceiling. Warm, metallic, tasting of rust and blood. He cannot move to wipe it away. It slides down the side of his cheek and neck, soaking into the film that binds him. The membrane absorbs it greedily, pulsing faster against his skin as if feeding on the droplet. He closes his eyes but cannot shut out the noise. The chamber hums with activity beyond its walls. Organic tunnels stretch outward like veins through a body, carrying vibrations of movement, the scraping of countless claws, the grinding of armored limbs. He thinks of arteries pumping with predators instead of blood. Somewhere deeper in the structure, a roar shakes the chamber. Not a beast, not a single throat. It is a chorus of alien voices meshing into one, a psychic shriek that claws directly at his skull. He cannot stop the cry that escapes his lips, high and strangled. Others in the chamber cry out too, a wave of terror answering terror. The walls vibrate with their fear, drinking it in. When the sound fades, silence is worse. He focuses on his breathing, in, out. The Emperor protects. He mouths the words, though the air burns his throat. The Emperor protects. The Emperor protects. The walls pulse against him harder with each repetition, as if mocking his prayer, as if savoring it. He tries to recall sunlight, though he has never truly seen it. In the Manufacturum Habs, light was regulated, pale and artificial. But the sermons spoke of terror's blazing heart. Priests painted visions of gold skies and eternal warmth. He clings to those words now, though in this place the memory feels counterfeit. The warmth here is rot. The light here is phosphorescent slime. Something shifts within the wall beside him. The membrane trembles, stretching as a bulge pushes outward. He hears wet cracking as a new form emerges, not human. A sac, swollen with greenish fluid, quivers and splits. Inside writhes a larval thing, its limbs unfinished, its jaws gnashing blindly. It thrashes for a moment before the walls swallow it back into themselves. He understands, then, that the chamber births more than it holds. It is womb and coffin, prison and nursery. His body trembles, though not from cold. The membrane adjusts, tightening again, holding him closer as though it can sense his fear. He is one more piece of biomass to be catalogued, tested, and eventually consumed. Yet for reasons he cannot know, the hive holds him here. Not devoured, not freed, but preserved. The thought circles in his head. Why? Why him? Why any of them? Some say Tyranids learn from their prey, dissecting more than flesh, dissecting memory, instinct, soul. Perhaps the hive finds something useful in the slow suffering of its captives. Perhaps their terror flavors the feast. Perhaps their screams are just music for an intelligence that cannot understand mercy. The walls pulse faster, in time with his racing heart. He swallows bile, his throat raw, his lungs aching from the thick air. His eyes lock on the crack of light where the man was dragged moments ago. It is gone now, sealed with fresh flesh, as though nothing ever opened there. The hive erases even evidence. Daron closes his eyes. He tells himself he will not scream. He tells himself routine will return, that there will be bells, quotas, sermons, that the Emperor will intervene, that the hive will move past him, forget him, spit him back out into the dark. But the truth presses against him like the living wall itself. There is no routine here, no escape, only waiting inside, something alive, until it decides what to do with him. And above it all, in the pulse of the chamber, in the whispers of claws beyond the walls, in the unseen intelligence that gazes through his fear, a certainty settles in his bones. The hive never forgets. There is no food in the hive, not as humans understand it. Each Daor, what he imagines, must be a Daedaron. Kale waits for the walls to feed him. The chamber's pulse shifts rhythm, a subtle tightening in the membrane against his chest, and the surface above his mouth trembles. A slit forms. A wet sound follows, like meat being torn apart, and then it drips down. Thick, viscous, pale green slime. It slides across his lips, sticky, tasting of iron and rot. The first time, he refused. He turned his head, clamping his mouth shut. The membrane responded by sealing tighter across his throat until he gagged. The slime found its way into his nose, choking him, forcing him to inhale or drown. When at last he swallowed, the membrane relaxed. Now he swallows quickly, without thought. He is conditioned. The slime does not fill the stomach the way bread once did, nor provide the warmth of broth or the sweetness of fruit. It is cold, foul, and alive. He can feel it writhing down his throat, sliding into him as if the hive deposits not just sustenance, but itself. Afterward, he shivers, and the walls seem to tremble with him, as if satisfied. Some captives beg for it when the wall does not open soon enough. They whimper, calling the hive mother, their voices cracked from thirst. Others scream when it comes, retching until their bodies convulse. Neither matters. The hive keeps them alive regardless, forcing slime into their mouths until their trembling stops. There is no privacy. The chamber does not allow such luxuries. Every prisoner is naked, fused to the glistening membranes like specimens pinned for dissection. The film that binds them does not merely hold, it breathes with them, mimicking the rise and fall of their chests, syncing their heartbeats to the larger pulse of the walls. Even when he closes his eyes, Duran feels it, 1,000 lungs breathing together, 1,000 hearts pounding in one rhythm. His body is no longer his own. Once, he tried to look away from the others, but the hive denies even that. The membrane stretches clear around his face, forcing him to stare forward. He sees their faces, pale in the phosphorescent glow. Some are familiar. He recognizes a Hab foreman who once ordered him to work overtime shifts. A clerk from the administratum office. A girl no older than 12, her eyes blank, lips coated with dried slime. The hive makes no distinction, worker, official, child. All are equal here. All are biomass waiting to be processed, and always there is the feeling that the walls are listening. It began as paranoia. He whispered prayers under his breath, quiet enough to be drowned by the wet sounds of the chamber. But the moment he spoke, the membrane across his lips quivered, tightening slightly, as though aware of every word. He has not dared to pray aloud since even his thoughts feel heavy, as though the hive presses against them, listening without ears. Sometimes, when another captive sobs or mutters, the walls respond. A ripple moves across the surface of the chamber. A tremor. Once, a man cursed the Tyranids, shouting until his voice broke. The membranes sealed around his face. He thrashed until he fell still. When it opened again, his eyes were gone, sockets filled with pulsating tissue. The walls do not tolerate defiance. The uncertainty gnaws, worse than hunger ever did. Why are they kept alive? The Imperium taught him that Tyranids devour everything, strip planets bare, leave nothing. To see them spare humans, hold them, preserve them defies reason. Perhaps they are food kept fresh until needed. Perhaps they are experiments, test subjects for some greater design. Perhaps the hive simply finds amusement in their despair. The not knowing is the true torture. Darren imagines a blade descending. Death would be clean, merciful, but this is worse. Each breath stolen from him, each drip of slime forced into his stomach. Each hour in the damp dark is a statement. You are ours, and we decide the measure of your suffering. He begins to mark time, though there are no clocks. He counts the heartbeats of the chamber. 100, 200, 1,000. But the rhythm falters, accelerating or slowing, never steady enough to anchor his mind. At some point, he realizes the hive does this on purpose. Even time has been stripped from him. Beside him, a woman begins to laugh. It starts small, a chuckle, then rises into hysterical shrieks. The sound cuts through the chamber, jagged, alien compared to the low sobs of the others. She screams words, nonsense, broken phrases. It knows my name. It knows my name. The wall trembles. Daron watches as the membrane across her body retracts, peeling away in strands of mucus. She wriggles free, collapsing to the ground in spasms. For a moment, freedom seems possible. But then, from above, something descends, a creature like a tongue fused with a claw, barbed and dripping. It spears her through the chest, lifts her twitching body high, and pulls her into a fleshy aperture. The opening closes. She is gone. The membrane covering her section slides back into place. Minutes later, another prisoner is pressed into it, fresh and silent. The cycle continues. Deren cannot even cry. He closes his eyes and thinks of the manufactorum. The clang of machines, the grind of servos, the stench of promethium. Misery, yes, but a misery that belonged to him. At least then he could count shifts, mark the bells, hold a ration bar in his hand. Here he has nothing. He is nothing. Sometimes he dreams. Dreams of light. Dreams of the Emperor's golden throne, its brilliance piercing the hive's darkness. But when he wakes, the glow above him is not golded, is bioluminescent ooze dripping from the walls. The Emperor does not hear him here. Only the hive does, and the hive listens too closely. He feels it when his thoughts drift, when he remembers his mother's face, when he recalls his habunate walls, the taste of stale bread. The chamber presses against him harder then, squeezing, as though reminding him those memories are irrelevant. He belongs to the hive now. His past is nothing. His body is nothing. His humanity is being stripped, cell by cell, memory by memory. Yet the hive does not kill him. Not yet. The uncertainty is worse than death. Every captive knows it. He sees it in their eyes wide, hollow, waiting for the moment the hive decides their fate. Some whisper that the hive is breeding something new. Others say the hive learns through them, storing their thoughts like data. The most fearful whisper that their very souls are being dissected. Deren does not know which is true. He only knows that death would be mercy, and the hive does not deal in mercy. He lies awake in the pulsing dark, the membrane rising and falling with his shallow breaths, and wonders what could be worse than being devoured. The hive does not feed them to live. It feeds them to suffer. It begins with the sound, always the sound. A scratching in the walls, claws dragging across slick chitin, a rhythm that echoes through the chamber. The captives stiffen as one. Even those half delirious from slime and exhaustion jolt awake. Everyone knows what comes next. The ducts open, fleshy apertures slide apart with a wet gasp, dripping mucus in long strings. From them crawl the fetus creatures smaller than warriors, but no less dreadful. Their bodies are slick with ichor, each step a slurp of wet limbs. They move like carrion beetles, heads low, mandibles chittering, backs bristling with spines that drip with fluid. They do not speak. They do not look. They simply work. One stops before Daron. The membrane binding him slackens without warning. He drops, hitting the floor in a splash of slime. His legs buckle. He cannot stand. He tries to crawl away, but the feeder clamps a claw around his ankle and drags him like a carcass. His nails scrape against the slick floor, leaving nothing but faint streaks of mucus. He is not alone. Dozens are pulled down at once, a line of prisoners herded toward the waiting ducts. Some beg to be spared. Some whisper prayers, choked and broken. Others remain silent, eyes hollow, beyond hope. The hive ignores them all. The ducts are alive. Their mouths flex as the feeders push captives inside, fleshy ridges pulsing with anticipation. Daron thrashes, his hands clawing at the floor, but there is nowhere to grasp. The feeder lifts him easily, mandibles clacking, and shoves him forward. The duct swallows him. It is not like entering a tunnel. It is like being eaten whole. The walls close instantly around his body, sealing him in darkness. Flesh grips every limb, every contour of his skin. It pulses, squeezing, contracting. He cannot breathe in till the walls force air into his lungs in ragged bursts. An alien rhythm that mocks his own. He is pushed forward, inch by inch, by muscles that ripple like intestines. Mucus fills his mouth. He chokes, vomits, swallows again. His ears are filled with the sounds of digestion-wet gurgles. Liquid churn, the heartbeat of the hive itself. And then the pain begins. Something in the walls pierces his skin. Not once, but dozens of times. Fine tendrils lance into him, burrowing beneath flesh, siphoning blood, drawing warmth. His veins burn as fluids are exchanged. He screams, but the sound dies in the fleshy tunnel. He realizes he is being processed, not consumed. Every drop of fear, every spasm, every ragged cry is measured, tasted, savored. He is food, yes, but not for sustenance. For torment, when he thinks he will break, when his mind begins to collapse into blackness, the duct shifts. The walls convulse, heaving him upward, forcing him back toward the chamber. He is expelled in a gush of slime, thrown onto the floor among the others. He lies, shivering, half-conscious, his body trembling with exhaustion and violation. This is feeding. This is nourishment. Not for him, but for the hive. The others lie beside him, coughing, retching, eyes glazed. Some twitch uncontrollably, their limbs spasming as though still pierced by invisible tendrils. The feeders move among them, shoving the half-dead back toward the membranes that will hold them again. One by one, the walls reclaim their captives, wrapping them in film, sealing them in place until the next cycle not all return. Daron notices gaps where prisoners once were. Faces he saw every waking moment are gone now, membranes empty. He does not know if they were consumed entirely, taken to deeper chambers, or dissolved in the ducts. Their absence is more terrifying than their screams. Death he can understand. Disappearance is something worse. A man near him does not rise after being expelled. His chest is sunken, his skin pale and veined with black lines. The feeder prods him once, twice, then drags him toward a different aperture. The duct yawns wider, lined with teeth-like protrusions. The man is shoved inside, and the duct closes with a sickening snap. He will not return. Daron's body is hauled back to the wall. The membrane stretches, sticky and warm, wrapping around him once more. He no longer resists. His limbs hang limp as the film tightens across his chest and face, sealing him in place. His breath sinks again with the chamber's pulse, and the hive hums in contentment. The cycle repeats, again and again. Time has no meaning. There is only the scrape of feeders, the duct's embrace, the siphoning tendrils, the shuddering expulsion back into slime and darkness. Some captives weep afterward, begging for death. Others laugh hysterically, broken beyond repair. Most remain silent, saving what little strength they have for the next cycle. Deren learns silence. He learns to breathe shallow, to conserve, to endure. But endurance is not victory. Endurance is only another flavor for the hive to taste. At night, or what he imagines to be night, he lies awake within the membrane, his eyes fixed on the pulsing walls. He wonders why they are spared consumption, why the ducts return them half dead rather than finishing the task. The question festers. Perhaps they are experiments. Perhaps the hive studies fear itself, feeding on the chemicals of their terror. Perhaps their suffering nourishes more than shit nourishes thought. The uncertainty claws at his mind worse than hunger ever did, and always, when captives vanish into ducts and never return. He asks himself the same question: when will it be my turn? Time does not exist in the hive, not as men once knew it. There are no bells to mark the work shifts, no chronometers ticking in brass casings, no sun rising, no moon falling. There is only the pulse. The walls throb endlessly, their rhythm slow and steady, like the beating of an immense heart. At first, Darren tried to count the intervals between each pulse, desperate to measure something, anything. He whispered numbers beneath his breath, clinging to the illusion of order. 10 pulses, 50, 100. But the rhythm changed, sometimes faster, sometimes slower, sometimes stuttering as though mocking his attempts. He abandoned the count after the 5th cycle when he realized the hive was doing it on purpose. Without time, the days, if they can be called days, dissolve into one endless moment. A membrane of slime, a cycle of feeding, a haze of exhaustion. He no longer knows how long he has been here. Weeks, months, perhaps years. Perhaps he was always here, and the manufacturum, the hab, the sermons were just dreams. The hive makes him doubt even memory. The repetition breaks the mind. The pulse, the slime, the ducts, the pulse, the slime, the ducts. The rhythm of torment, repeated until it becomes liturgy. Others collapse first. A man beside him, an administratum clerk, he dimly remembers from Coronia hive mutters constantly, whispering fragments of records and tithe quotas. He repeats numbers, reciting endless reports as if clinging to the only language he knows. His voice becomes hoarse, but he does not stop. When the feeders come for him, his words are muffled in the ducts until they vanish entirely. He does not return. A woman farther down begins to chant litanies. The Emperor protects. The Emperor protects. The Emperor protects. Over and over, her cracked lips bleeding with the effort. The others join her at first. Deron whispers the words to closing, his eyes imagining the Emperor's golden light piercing the filth. But the wall tightens around his mouth, pressing against his teeth until the prayer stops. The chamber does not allow defiance. The next time the woman prays, the membrane over her chest pulses violently. It crushes down, bones snap, her breath ends. The hive holds her corpse until it softens, then absorbs her into the wall. Where she once hung, a fresh membrane forms, empty and waiting. Faith is not protection here. Faith is bait. Deren does not pray aloud anymore. Sometimes, in the dark between feeding, he dares to think the words silently. The Emperor protects, but the thought feels thin, fragile, like paper burning in the rain. In this place, faith is not answered. Faith is mocked. He begins to notice things. Whispers, not from captives, but from the walls themselves. They rise. In the silence, faint and wet, like breath through cracks. At first he believes they are hallucinations born of exhaustion, but then he hears his name, Tyranid. It is soft, stretched, distorted. He jerks, eyes darting. The other captives do not react. The whispers are for him alone. He tries to convince himself it was nothing, an echo, a trick. But the next cycle, when he is expelled from the ducts and lies trembling in slime, he hears it again. This time the whisper is joined by others, half-formed words, broken syllables, a language that is not language. They slither into his ears, seeding doubt. He does not know if they come from outside or inside. Sleep offers no relief. He drifts into shallow dreams where the manufacturing bells toll endlessly, only to wake and realize the sound is the chamber's pulse echoing in his skull. He dreams of Sarah, his wife, his children, but their faces blur, smeared like wet paint. When he tries to recall details, all he sees is the glistening walls. The hive devours even memory. The repetition makes him question reality. Was there ever a Sarah? Were there ever children? Or has he always been here, strapped to living flesh, waiting to be processed? He cannot tell. The hive does not permit certainty. Hopelessness spreads like rot among the captives. Some sob until their voices break. Some thrash in futile rage, earning only tighter bonds. Others grow silent, staring blankly, eyes glazed as if already dead. The hive absorbs each reaction, savoring every shade of despair. Deren watches them fade, one by one, and knows he is fading too. He begins to wonder if the hive wants this, not simply to consume flesh, but to unmake the mind first, stripping humanity layer by layer until nothing remains. Food is not just blood or muscle, it is despair, faith crumbling into dust, hope dissolving in mucus. And still, the unanswered question gnaws. Why are they alive? Why keep them half-breathing, half-conscious, cycling through torment after torment? Why not finish it? He searches for logic, but none comes. The hive is not logical. It is hunger shaped into flesh. Perhaps they are experiments. Perhaps their screams nourish synapse creatures in ways biomass cannot. Perhaps the hive is simply curious what happens when men are broken slowly. He does not know. None of them know, and the not knowing is worse than death. One cycle. When the ducts return him half-conscious, he sees an empty space where another captive once hung. The membrane is gone, smoothed over as though nothing was ever there. He cannot even remember the man's face. Already the hive has erased it. He realizes, then, that forgetting is its own cruelty. They are not just stripped of body, they are stripped of each other, memory devoured along with flesh. The pulse continues. He tries to hum a hymn beneath his breath. Soft enough, he hopes the hive will not notice. A lullaby from his childhood, though the words are gone now. Only the rhythm remains. The pulse answers, quickening for a moment, mocking the tune. He stops. Hopelessness settles like a weight on his chest. He is stripped of time, stripped of privacy, stripped of prayer, stripped of certainty. He is no longer a man of the Imperium. He is a thought inside the hive's stomach, waiting to dissolve. And when he closes his eyes, he swears the whispers laugh. It begins with silence, not the silence of peace, but the silence of a breath held too long. The chamber's pulse falters for the first time since Daron woke within it. The rhythm that has defined his torment, the constant beating heart of the hive stumbles, pauses, then resumes with a shuddering throb. Every captive feels it. They shift in their bindings, eyes wide, as though the very absence of sound is more terrifying than the endless noise. Something is watching Daron. Knows it before he sees anything, before he hears the first tremor of claws scraping along the outer walls. The sensation is unmistakable, a weight pressing upon his thoughts, a pressure behind his eyes, a cold hand wrapped around the back of his skull. He has been seen. The feeders had come earlier, dragging away a line of captives into ducts that swallowed them whole. He should be too weak to notice anything else. But this is different. This is not the work of feeders or ducts. This is larger, older, vast beyond comprehension. He cannot move, yet he feels himself turned inward, as though the hive has shifted its gaze not onto his body, but his mind. It brushes across him like claws raking over parchment, delicate and precise, and every memory it touches trembles under the strain. He tries to resist, clinging to fragments of his past. His habit, Sarah's tired smile after a 12-hour shift, the twins asleep on fold-out cots. The hive pushes deeper, drowning those memories beneath something immeasurable. It is not a voice. Voices have tone, inflection, language. This is hunger given form, thought without words, command without speech. A billion impressions crash into him at once, like a tide of knives tearing through the skull. He sees images that are not his own, skies blackened with wings, seas of flesh flowing across continents, towers collapsing under endless claws. He hears screams that stretch across worlds, yet they are not screams of individuals but of species dying together, an entire race expiring in one shuddering cry. His mouth fills with bile, his vision blurs. Still, the hive presses closer. Others feel it too. The captives twitch, some sobbing, some babbling nonsense. A man, 2 membranes down, gnashes his teeth until blood foams across his chin. Another beats his head against the wall until bone splits and red seeps into slime. Their torment is shared, but Daron knows the focus is on him. He is the one the hive sees most clearly. Why? The question forms before he can stop it. It is not asked aloud. It is not even fully his thought. But the hive answers anyway. Not with truth, not with clarity, but with more images, more drowning. He sees oceans of biomass, not as food, but as resource souls dissolved into fuel. Thoughts stripped into instinct, flesh into function. He glimpses creatures he cannot name, synapse beings, their minds vast and cold, each one a fragment of the greater will. Their thoughts flow into him and out again, consuming his own as easily as fire consumes dry paper. The hive does not want conversation. The hive does not want prayers. The hive wants everything, and yet it does not consume him fully. It pulls back, leaving fragments of thought behind, whispers that are not his, a wordless itch in the base of his skull, a reminder that he is still seen, still marked. He gulps air through trembling lips. The membrane around his chest pulses harder, sinking with the racing of his heart as if mocking it. He tries to whisper the old creed that Emperor protects, but the words are dry, useless. What protection can a distant corpse offer against this? Against an ocean of thought vast enough to swallow stars? The captives beside him shiver in unison. Some begin muttering prayers, desperate, frantic, but the hive hears them all. Their faith is just another sound in the chorus of minds it devours. Darren closes his eyes. Behind them, visions swirl. He sees himself standing on the manufacturing floor, placing guidance systems into artillery shells. Only now, the shells burst not into warheads, but into mouths, each explosion a scream, each fragment a claw. He sees his family sitting in the hub unit, but their eyes glow with alien light, and their mouths open to release the same psychic scream that echoes through his skull. He tries to shake it off, but the images remain. The hive has left a seed inside him, a residue of its presence. The worst part is not the pain, it is the attention. To be devoured would be simple, final. But this is worse. To be studied, prodded, weighed, as though he were a piece of machinery being tested for flaws. His soul has become a data. His despair is a measurement. His faith is a variable. He is not man to the hive. He is an equation. When the pulse of the chamber steadies again, the silence breaks. The captives groan with relief, though none understand what has just happened. None except him. He has been seen, and deep in his heart, beneath the muck and fear, a truth lodges sharp as bone. This was only a glance. The hive mind did not focus. It brushed, it touched, it tasted. If this small intrusion nearly shattered him, what will it mean when the hive decides to truly look? The thought haunts him as the walls pulse, as the ducts open again, as the cycle repeats. He swallows slime without complaint, lies still within his membrane, tries to appear as ordinary as the others. But the itch remains. The mark left in his skull. He has no idea why the hive singled him out, and that uncertainty is the worst torment of all. It begins with the feeders, but they are not here to take them to the ducts. The chamber opens in a new place, a slit in the wall that widens into a tunnel lined with pulsing ridges. From it emerge creatures taller than the feeders, their limbs jointed at wrong angles, their carapaces slick with mucus. Their eyes burn with faint bioluminescence. But Duran realizes they are not eyes at all, only sensory pits, scanning, measuring, judging. These are not gatherers. These are collectors. The captives know it instantly. The air changes. The pulse of the chamber quickens. Membranes slacken and peel back, releasing chosen prisoners one by one. Screams fill the chamber as bodies are hauled by hooked limbs into the waiting tunnel. Deren counts them. He doesn't mean to, but he does. Counting has become survival. Each taken prisoner is another mark in his mind, another name carved into a list that no parchment will ever hold. 7. This cycle. The captives whisper among themselves after the collectors depart. They always whisper, never speak aloud, never let the hive hear. They catalogue like clerks forced into nightmare. The man with the broken nose, gone. The girl from the third row, gone. The preacher, gone. Their voices are hushed but desperate, as though if they do not record the losses, they will cease to exist entirely. Most do not return, but some do. The first returns 3 cycles later. He is dropped unceremoniously onto the floor, his body shuddering. At first, Duran thinks him dead, but then he twitches, gasping like a fish dragged onto land. The membrane reclaims him, pressing him back against the wall. Only when the slime clears from his face does Tyranid see what has changed. His veins glow faintly green, pulsing with alien light. His eyes dart rapidly, moving too fast, unfocused. When he opens his mouth, no words come, only a thin, keening sound like static. He does not stop making it, even as the wall seals him tight. Others return, altered as well. One has limbs that twitch uncontrollably, jerking in spasms that never end. Another whispers constantly, words in no human tongue, syllables slick and wet, as though his throat has been rewired. It becomes clear, the collectors do not just test, they splice. They probe the line between human and Tyranid, twisting captives into something that fits neither. Tyranid watches, horrified, as more are taken. Some come back as husks, trembling shells that rot alive in their bindings. Some do not come back at all. The whispers among captives grow more frantic. They keep records as if it matters. 2 taken, 1 returned, 3 gone. None back, 9 taken, 5 altered. They speak in numbers, in tallies, like administrators filing reports. It is a parody of bureaucracy, a litany of despair. DERREN joins in the counting. It gives shape to the terror. He clings to the idea that if they record the pattern, maybe they can predict who will return, who will vanish. But the Hive mocks this too. No pattern holds. No logic governs the choices. Sometimes the strong are taken. Sometimes the weak. Sometimes none. Sometimes all, and then, one cycle, Tyranid himself is chosen. The membrane slackens, peeling away with a sound like wet cloth tearing. His body collapses to the floor, too weak to stand. The collectors descend upon him instantly. Hooks bite into his arms and legs. He is lifted, carried into the tunnel, swallowed by its slick darkness. The laboratory awaits. It is no room, no hall. It is an organ. The walls quiver with sacs of fluid, twitching shapes half-formed within them. Slime drips from the ceiling, pooling around him. He is laid upon a slab of flesh that throbs beneath him like a living tongue. Tendrils slither up from the surface, wrapping around his wrists and ankles, pinning him spread wide. He screams, but the walls drink the sound. A needle descends, if it can be called a needle. It is a spine, translucent, hollow, tipped with barbs that flex. It plunges into his arm. Fire erupts in his veins as his blood is drawn. Not just taken, replaced. Fluids pump into him, cold and burning all at once. His vision blurs. Another spine pierces his chest. He convulses, every nerve alight. He feels something slip into him, not liquid, not solid, but alive. It writhes through his bloodstream, burrowing, curling. His body becomes a map of pain as the foreign thing learns him from within. Through the haze he glimpses other slabs. Other captives writhe, pierced by spines, their mouths open in endless screams. Some already twitched with alien growths, fuzz of chitin breaking their skin. Eyes swelling into compound clusters. The hive is making something new. Time dissolves into agony. He cannot tell how long it lasts. The spines retract, sliding wetly out of him. He is left twitching, convulsing, gasping for air. The tendrils release him, and collectors seize his body, dragging him back down the tunnel. He is hurled once more onto the chamber floor. The other captives recoil, as if afraid he carries infection. His limbs spasm uncontrollably. his chest burning with unnatural fire. The membrane reclaims him, wrapping him back into place. He lies there, shaking, eyes wide, trying to remember who he was. But the whispers creep in. Not the same whispers as before, these come from inside. From his blood. Words he does not understand form in the corners of his thoughts, oily and sharp. He tries to pray, but the prayers are drowned beneath them. The others whisper their record. Kale, taken. Kale, returned. Their voices are low, as though the very act of acknowledging him could bring punishment. He sees in their eyes the fear. Will he be the next to change? Will he begin to twitch, to whisper, to vanish? Darren does not answer. He cannot. The hive has touched him, and something of it now lives inside him. The records fail. Until now, the captives' whispered catalogues had offered a fragile order. 7 taken, 4 returned, 2 altered. The pattern was thin, but it was something to cling to, like prayer beads counted in the dark. Now even that is broken, because one of them has returned, but not as human. His name was Brennick. Darren remembers it because the captives had spoken it often, keeping track of who vanished and who came back. Brennick had been a miner from the sublevels, broad-shouldered even when starvation wasted him. He whispered little, his voice gravel from years of dust and rockcrete. When the collectors dragged him away, no one expected to see him again, but now he hangs from his membrane. Once more, and he is wrong. It is not the twitching of altered nerves this time, not the faint glow of veins filled with alien fluid. This is something else. His skin bulges as though something inside presses outward. His veins run black, not green, swelling like ropes across his arms. His fingers curl, nails lengthening into hooked claws that scrape against the binding slime. The others murmur in horror. They do not need to whisper numbers anymore. They only need to watch Brennick convulses, his mouth opening in a scream. But the sound is not human. It is wet, guttural, half-chitter. His eyes roll back, then snap forward again, pupils spreading into black pools that reflect no light. For a heartbeat, Darren sees nothing human left in them. Then the flesh breaks. Chitin bursts from Brennick's forearm, cracking through skin like a blade splitting bark. Segmented plates erupt along his ribs, pushing aside his flesh in jagged ridges. His jaw splits wider than it should, teeth lengthening into serrated spikes. The membrane strains to hold him, but the hive does not resist. It allows this. The captives scream. Not because Brennick mutates, but because the hive wanted them to see it. Brennick thrashes, his new limbs cutting into the slime. Black ichor pours down his chest, steaming as it hits the chamber floor. He shrieks again, but this time the sound is layered human terror wrapped in alien command. Then the walls move. The membrane slackens, not to free him, but to claim him. It stretches, splits, and swallows the mutating flesh. The walls themselves open like a mouth. Brennick is pulled backward into the living surface, his body pressed into the quivering tissue. His face emerges for a moment, screaming silently as the wall closes around it, then sinks beneath the surface. In seconds, he is gone. The chamber's pulse quickens. The walls throb as though pleased. The captives tremble, pressed tighter into their bindings, forced to witness every detail. There is no mistaking the message. You are not spared. You are raw material. Darren cannot breathe. His chest heaves, but the membrane keeps him alive regardless. He stares at the place where Brennick had been. The wall still pulses faintly, swollen where it has absorbed him. For a moment, He thinks he hears whispers leaking from it, not from the hive, but from Brennick himself. Kill me. He shuts his eyes. When he opens them again, the others are watching him. Not with accusation, but with terror. He had been taken before. He had been pierced, spliced, returned. His veins had burned with alien fire. His body had spasmed, his thoughts filled with whispers not his own. What if he is next? He feels their suspicion like heat. If he begins to twitch, if he begins to whisper, they will turn from him. Already they are whispering his name in the catalogues. Kale, taken. Kale, returned. Kale, changed. He presses his lips together. He will not twitch. He will not whisper. He will not give them reason. But his blood burns, and the whispers coil tighter inside his skull. Laughing, Brennick is not the last. Days or cycles, or something beyond counting pass, before another is chosen. A thin woman with hollow cheeks and a scar across her brow. The collectors drag her screaming into the tunnel. Hours later, she is hurled back, her limbs swollen, her flesh crawling with ridges that were not there before. She does not resist when the wall opens to claim her. She only sobs, begging for the Emperor, until the wall silences her forever. The captives stop keeping records. There is no need. The truth is plain. Each of them is not just a prisoner. They are ingredients. The hive is changing them. Dud Erren lies in his membrane, his heart racing in time with the chamber's pulse. He imagines chitin splitting through his skin, his mouth tearing into an alien shriek. He imagines the wall absorbing him, pressing him into its flesh until he is nothing but a shape beneath the surface. He wonders if he will beg like the woman, or if he will fight like Brennick. He whispers once, too soft for the hive to hear, "The Emperor protects." But the words are ash on his tongue. The chamber hums in answer, a low vibration of hunger. The escalation is clear. The ducts strip them, the laboratories splice them, and when the hive is finished, the walls drink them whole. One day, Daron knows, the record will end with his name, and when it does, there will be nothing left of him to remember. The hive decides the captives should no longer suffer alone. It begins when the walls sprout filaments. Thin, translucent tendrils slide from the membranes that hold them, writhing like worms seeking purchase. Daron feels one brush his neck, slick and cold, leaving a line of slime across his skin. He jerks away as far as the binding allows, but the membrane tightens, forcing his head back. The tendril slips against his temple, finds a crease in the skin, and pushes inward. He screams. But so do all the others. The tendrils find every prisoner, fastening themselves to temples, to spines, to the soft flesh just behind the ears. They burrow, but not deep enough to kill, just enough to connect. The pain fades quickly, replaced by something worse, sensation that is not his own. At first, it is confusion. He feels breath that is not his breath, fear that is not his fear. His heart hammers, but not alone. Hundreds of hearts pound in sync, a single rhythm like drums in the void. He realizes he is inside them, inside all of them, and they are inside him. The chamber is no longer filled with individual captives. It is one captive, stretched across dozens of bodies. Daron feels their terror as if it were his, their hunger gnawing at his stomach, their silent prayers burning in his mind. His thoughts are no longer private. When he whispers, "The Emperor protects," he hears others repeat it back to him, not in sound, but in thought. Fractured echoes, the hive has linked them, and then the visions begin. The walls pulse harder, pumping waves of psychic pressure through the filaments. Daron gasps as the chamber vanishes. He is somewhere else. A sky blackens. He sees it through alien eyes, faceted and sharp, each color twisted. A world sprawls below, forests and oceans and cities, but they are not beautiful. They are resources. He watches claws tear through buildings, oceans boil with writhing forms, forests collapse into mulch. He feels the biomass flow upward, dissolved into rivers of nutrient slime that pour into the hive ships. The taste of it fills him salt. Ash, iron, entire continents devoured and swallowed in gulps. He tries to pull back, but the vision is not his to end. The hive shows him another, a world of ice. He feels the crunch of snow beneath 1,000 limbs, the shriek of winds across carapace. He feels hunger unending, teeth splitting flesh, blood steaming against frozen ground. An entire population screaming as the swarm descends. Then silence. Perfect silence, because there is nothing left alive to scream. He reels, choking on air that is not air. He is drowning in memory not his own. The others share the same visions. He hears them crying in his head, babbling prayers, begging for it to stop. Their voices are his voices. Their terror is his terror. The hive makes them one mind, not strong, not united, but broken. Flooded with horror, too vast for any single human soul to carry. And still the visions continue. A fortress world. Walls high as mountains, bastions bristling with guns. Daron sees it not as safety, but as challenge. He feels the hive's anticipation, the thrill of claws rending steel, of towers crashing in fire. He feels the swarm drown trenches in flesh, the defenders screaming as ammunition runs dry. He tastes their despair as nourishment. Their courage is a spice. Their fear is meat. Their bodies are fodder. The hive does not only consume flesh, it consumes everything. Tyranid thrashes in his bindings, but the filament burrows deeper, locking him into the psychic current. He cries out, but the others cry with him, their voices blending into a single psychic wail that the hive drinks like wine. And then, for a moment, he feels something more. Not just the swarm, not just the claws and teeth. He feels the mind above it all, vast, endless, a will so immense it makes the stars seem small. It looks through him, through all of them, and for an instant he understands the scale. This is not an army. This is not a species. This is a hunger that spans galaxies. The hive does not hate. It does not rage. It only consumes, and it has noticed him. He feels its attention brush him, the way a man might notice an ant crawling across his boot. Daron's thoughts scatter like dust. He cannot hide anything. Every memory, every prayer, every scrap of humanity is laid bare. The hive tastes it, measures it, and moves on. When it releases him, he sobs in relief. But the visions linger. He still tastes ash in his mouth, still hears the death cries of billions, still sees oceans boiling with flesh. His own mind is polluted, no longer clean. The filaments retract slowly, slipping free from temples and spines. The captives slump in their bindings, drained. Some weep quietly. Others stare blankly, eyes gone hollow. A few do not move at all, their minds burned out by what they were forced to see. Daron shudders. He wants to cling to faith, to whisper that the Emperor protects, But what is the promise of one corpse on terror against this ocean? Against a hunger that never ends? He closes his eyes and tries to remember Sarah, the twins, the Habunit walls painted ochre. But when he pictures them now, their eyes are black, their mouths open, and their voices whisper in the hive's tongue. The walls pulse, the hive hums, and Darren realizes the truth. They are not only food, they are mirrors. The hive uses them to see itself through human eyes, to know how terror tastes, to learn how faith breaks, to savor the ruin of souls as much as the ruin of worlds. And when the filaments grow again, he knows he will not survive the next vision. It begins with whispers, but not the hives. The captives whisper to one another, lips barely moving against the slime, thoughts darting like sparks in the dark. It is madness, of course. Everyone knows there is no escape, and yet madness breeds desperate hope. There are 5 of them. Darren recognizes their faces. He has stared at them long enough. A gaunt woman from the upper manufactorum, a soldier with one eye clouded white, a youth barely grown, and an old man with skin like parchment. They whisper their plan not in words but in gestures, tiny motions the hive does not notice or perhaps chooses to ignore. That cycle. When the membranes slacken to release captives for feeding, they act. The soldier thrashes, twisting free before the feeder's claw can clamp around his leg. His body slams against the floor, rolling in slime. The old man follows, ripping at the membrane as it loosens, tearing it from his chest in stringy clumps. The others struggle free, their cries swallowed by the chamber's pulse, for a heartbeat. It works. Deren watches in frozen disbelief as they scramble toward the far wall, toward a seam in the living flesh. Their fingers dig into the membrane, pulling, tearing. It stretches, splits, and opens into a tunnel slick with mucus. The hive does not move to stop them. Not yet. The soldier goes first, crawling on hands and knees. The youth follows, sobbing with both terror and joy. The others push through, vanishing into the dark. Darren feels a surge of something he has not felt since the hive took him in V. They are gone, free. But the hive never gives freedom. The tunnel slopes downward. The walls pulse with wet contractions, pushing them along. At first, they believe it is helping them. Then the stench hits thick, sour, unmistakable. The smell of rot and acid. The soldier drops into a cavern. His feet splash into liquid that burns his skin raw. He screams, stumbling back, but the others pile into him, tumbling down. The cavern is vast, its walls lined with glistening ridges. Its floor a black pool that bubbles faintly. And in the pool, bodies float, hundreds, thousands, stripped of skin, stripped of form, half dissolved into pulp. Faces sag, unrecognizable, eyes melted into sockets. Fingers twitch, as though even in death they are not permitted rest. The pool quivers, and the bodies sink, breaking apart into slurry. It is not water. It is nutrient broth. The hive digests here. The woman wades in waist-deep before she realizes what surrounds her. A head brushes against her shoulder, the mouth still opening and closing, jawless and wet. She shrieks, thrashing, and the pool welcomes her, pulling her under in a froth of acid. Her cries are short. Bubbles rise. Nothing else. The soldier drags himself to the edge, flesh sloughing from his burned legs. He tries to crawl, but the wall itself ripples, tendrils lashing out, dragging him back into the pit. He disappears beneath the slurry, his scream muffled by bodies. The youth tries to climb back up the tunnel, fingers bleeding as he claws at the slick walls. The old man grabs his arm, hauling him, but the tunnel it contracts like a throat, shoving them both downward. They fall together into the broth. The old man vanishes instantly. The youth surfaces, flailing, eyes wide, lips mouthing silent pleas. Darren cannot look away. He sees the boy's face sink into the slurry, sees the bubbles stop, sees the pit settle once more into a calm, rippling pool. The hive does not devour them whole. It digests them alive. Back in the chamber, the captives scream. Not for the lost, not even for themselves. They scream because they know now that the hive allows no escape. It wanted them to see this, to know where rebellion leads. The tunnel seals, the walls close, the seam is gone. Deren presses his forehead against the slime binding him. His body trembles uncontrollably. The chamber hums, low and pleased. He realizes the hive did not fail to notice their escape. It permitted it, guided it, even. The false hope, the desperate scramble, the plunge into the nutrient pools, was all theatre. A lesson for those who remained. He hears the whispers then, soft and mocking, not the voices of the captives, but of the hive itself. Run, crawl, struggle, it changes nothing. You are food. You are fuel. The captives stop whispering plans after that. No more catalogues, no more desperate hope. Only silence, broken by sobs too soft to anger the walls. Darren stares at the place where the tunnel had been. He sees it even now, imagines tearing through, imagines running. But he knows what waits beyond. No escape, only deeper horror. The hive holds them, body and soul, until it decides otherwise. It takes them too long to understand. At first, the captives believed the torment was random. The feeding ducts, the experiments, the linking filaments, the visions all seemed like scattered cruelties of an alien mind too vast to comprehend. They whispered theories in secret, trading guesses like children in the dark. The hive is testing us. The hive is mocking us. The hive is simply cruel. But then the pattern emerges. Darren is the first to notice, though he does not want to. It is in the way the hive reacts when they scream. When the ducts fill with their cries, the walls thrum louder, faster, pleased. When prayers rise, the membranes pulse, absorbing each syllable. When despair breaks them into silence, the chamber hums with a satisfied vibration. The hive is not indifferent. It is feeding not only on their bodies, but on their suffering. The revelation comes during one cycle, when the ducts claim too many. 15 taken at once, only 3 return. The chamber quivers with the sound of captives wailing for the vanished. The grief is raw, unrestrained. Darren feels it pulse through the shared psychic chains, dragging every soul into the same pit, and the hive drinks it. The walls glow faintly with bioluminescence. The pulse deepens, steady and strong. The air grows thick, the stench sharper, like acid and copper. It is not random. The hive grows more alive when they suffer. They are cattle, yes, but worse. Cattle are slaughtered quickly. The hive does not butcher, it seasons, it fattens. It marinates their terror, their anguish, their endless prayers. Each cry is a spice, each sob a flavor. They are not food in the human sense. They are ingredients in a feast only the hive can taste. Darren tries to fight the thought, but it is undeniable. When the soldier beside him breaks into hysterical, Laughter, babbling about escape. The walls pulse with delight. When the youth screams for his mother, the membranes quiver hungrily. When silence falls, the hive hums, full and content. The hive is not tormenting them by accident. It is cultivating them. Deren remembers the manufactorum again. The tithe clerks, weighing shipments of grain, noting which was too dry, which too bitter. The overseers who demanded workers sweat longer hours because exhaustion made them obedient. The endless forms, the quotas, the measurements. He sees it clearly now. The hive is the same, only purer. It has no lies about faith, no sermons about purpose. It strips everything down to hunger, but it does not feed blindly. It savors. The next cycle proves it beyond doubt. Tyranid is dragged once more into the ducts. The walls squeeze him, tendrils piercing, fluids flooding. His terror spikes hand. Immediately the pressure lessens, almost gently, as though savoring the burst. Then pain follows, sharp, searing, enough to rip another scream from his throat. Again the walls ease, drinking every sound. He is a winepress. His fear is the juice. When he is expelled back onto the floor, half conscious, he sees the others looking at him. Their eyes are wide with the same realization. They know now. Every whimper, every prayer, every desperate sob is part of the feast. The soldier spits blood into the slime and mutters, "We're cattle." The woman next to him shakes her head slowly. "No, cattle die quick. We're seasoning." Her words cling to Darren's mind like rot. Seasoning, that is what they are. Their despair flavors the digestion of the billions who have already fallen. The hive does not eat only flesh. It eats everything. That night door what passes for night Darren tries to hold his thoughts still, to give the hive nothing. He forces his breath calm, his heart steady. He recalls the Emperor's golden throne, the sermons of light and purity, the promise of protection. He clings to them like armor, but the hive feels even that. The membrane presses tighter, squeezing him until his ribs ache. The whispers creep in, mocking the images of terror's golden sky. Your faith is spice. Your hope is sweeter when it rots. He cannot stop himself. He sobs, and the hive hums, full and satisfied. From then on, the chamber is quieter. The captives no longer pray aloud. They no longer whisper plans. They try to starve the hive, to deny it the flavor of their pain. But even silence is not escape. Silence tastes of despair, and the hive savors it just as well. Tyranid realizes they cannot win. Not with words, not with faith, not even with death. The hive does not waste suffering. It collects it, stores it, digests it with the flesh. Even corpses are not spared. Their terror lingers in the broth, feeding the swarm long after the scream has ended. And so he understands the purpose. They are not prisoners. They are not experiments. They are vessels. Their agony flavors the swarm, shaping the psychic resonance that drives it forward. Each shriek, each plea, each whispered prayer to the Emperor is ground into the same feast as their bones. The hive does not just consume worlds, it savors the ruin of souls. Deren closes his eyes. The walls pulse against him. The whispers crawl through his veins. His own despair is thick and bitter on his tongue, and the hive drinks deeply. It begins with one man's scream, not the scream of pain they are all familiar with, but the scream of revelation. Sharp, jagged, filled with something worse than agony, understanding the man's name, as the captives had catalogued, was Halvik. A former scriber, his voice once carried the clipped tone of an administratum clerk, reciting records, even in half-conscious delirium. He had survived the ducts, the experiments, even the visions. But now he begins to mutter, eyes darting back and forth as if following something no one else can see. Deren hears him first. The whispering begins beneath his breath, soft, frantic. Not prayers, not numbers. Something else. They are speaking. Halvik hisses, teeth chattering. Not sound, not words. But I hear them. I hear them. The others glance at him in terror. They know better than to draw attention, yet they cannot look away. Halvik shakes in his membrane, pulling against it until it creaks. His eyes are wide, pupils dilated until they are nearly black. Deren whispers, barely moving his lips. What do you hear? Halvik turns his head slowly. His gaze fixes on Deren, sharp and unblinking. Hunger. The hive chooses him. That cycle, when the membranes tighten, when the chamber hums, when the ductors rumble with unseen motion, Halvik convulses. He slams his head against the wall, foam spilling from his lips. His voice rises not a scream now, but a chorus. A dozen tones spill from his throat at once, human and inhuman, male and female, deep and shrill. It is not words. It is not language. But every captive feels it. Hunger, the thought slides into Deren's skull like a blade. It is not heard with ears, but felt behind the eyes, vibrating in bone. It drowns his own thoughts. He cannot stop imagining jaws, millions of them, gnashing in perfect unison. He cannot stop tasting ash, blood, marrow. He cannot stop hungering. Halvik shakes violently. His chest heaves, the membrane pressing hard to hold him still. His voice breaks into fragmented cries, but the hive continues to pour through him. Images burn in their minds. Not visions now, not fragments of alien memory, but live sensation. They feel the swarm moving, wings blotting out skies, claws tearing cities into dust. They feel the consumption of a world as though they themselves are the teeth grinding it down. They are the swarm, they are the maw, they are the void screaming for more. Halvik laughs through the foam. Do you feel it? Do you see? We are nothing. We are flavor. His laughter turns to sobbing, and yet it watches. It wants more, always more. The captives beg him to stop. Some scream for silence. Others pray desperately, their words drowned in the chorus. But Halvik cannot stop. His mind is no longer his own. He has become a conduit. Deren feels his own sanity tearing. The hunger is too vast, too endless. It is not rage, not cruelty, not even malice. It is a void without bottom, an appetite so immense that the death of galaxies would not sat it. He tries to remember his wife's face, his children's laughter, the manufacturing bells, but all that comes is the gnash of teeth. The taste of bone. The hive presses deeper. For a moment, Deren believes it looks through Halvik's eyes and sees them all. Not as men and women, not as captives, but as vessels filled with fear, their terror fermenting into psychic wine. He feels its approval, its desire, its promise. Halvik screams until his throat tears. Blood spatters the membrane. Still the sound continues not from his mouth now, but from inside their skulls. The hunger grows louder, drowning every thought, every memory. One by one, the captives break. A woman beats her head against the wall until her skull splits. A youth sobs for his mother until his voice cracks into silence. An old man clutches at his chest, eyes bulging, before collapsing in stillness. Their bodies hang limp, but the hive feasts on the terror left behind, and Halvik continues. His sanity is gone. His body jerks violently, veins bulging, skin splitting in thin lines where black ichor seeps out. His eyes roll back, showing only white. He gasps between words that are not words, his mouth opening wider than it should. Not prey, not slaves, not even flesh. We are notes in its song. We are screams in its feast. Darren cannot block it out. His ears bleed from the effort of resisting. His skull feels ready to split. He whispers the old prayer, desperate. The Emperor protects, the Emperor protects. But even that feels hollow. What is one man's God when the universe itself is a throat and teeth? The hive finally withdraws. Halvik slumps forward in his membrane, eyes glassy, chest heaving shallow breaths. His voice is gone, but the echoes remain. The hunger still gnaws at Darren's thoughts. He still tastes ash. He still hears jaws in the silence. The chamber pulses slowly, satisfied. The walls hum in approval, drinking in the residue of their broken minds. Duran stares at Halvik's trembling frame. The man twitches, mutters nonsense, laughs and sobs in the same breath. He is no longer a captive, not truly. He is a mouthpiece, a channel, a warning, and Darren knows with hollow certainty, one day the hive will choose him too. The hive reveals another purpose for its captives. It begins with the collectors again. Their hooked limbs scrape across the chamber floor as they pull bodies from membranes. Darren is not chosen this time. He watches instead, chest heaving, as a dozen men and women are dragged screaming into the tunnel. The others fall silent. No one prays. No one whispers. They all know what comes next. Another lesson, hours or heartbeats, or years later, the captives return. But they are not the same. At first, Darren thinks they are swollen from beatings, bruised and misshapen. Then he sees the truth. Their chests bulge unnaturally, ribs straining, flesh stretched thin and shining with sweat. The membranes hold them fast, but they writhe constantly, as if their own bodies betray them. One woman screams without stopping. Not the scream of fear, but of something alive moving inside her. Her belly twists, her ribs quake. Beneath her skin, something kicks. The hive has implanted them. The captives are no longer prisoners. They are WOMBs. The chamber thrums with satisfaction as the first begins to convulse. The man's back arches, his mouth foaming, his chest splitting into ridges. He claws at himself, but the membrane holds him still. His eyes widen, tears streaming down his face as his sternum cracks. From within, something pushes. The ribcage bursts with a wet snap. Out spills a lava slick, pale, twitching with needle limbs. It wriggles free, mandibles snapping, coated in blood. The man's scream breaks into a gurgle. He is still alive, still conscious, forced to watch his own body give birth to the swarm. The lava chitters and the walls quiver in approval. The membrane pulls the broken man deeper, sealing him into the chamber's flesh. Only his muffled sobs remain as the lava is carried away by feeders into some deeper passage. The others are not spared. One by one, the captives rupture. A woman sobs as her chest swells like a balloon, then splits, spilling ichor and alien flesh. A youth wails for his mother until the words dissolve into gargling shrieks as a larva claws through his ribs. Another prays through broken teeth until his prayer becomes a roar of agony, drowned by the sound of bones cracking open. They do not die quickly. The hive ensures it. Each victim is held alive long enough to witness their own violation, to watch the swarm crawl out of their ruined bodies. Their eyes stay wide, their mouths gasping, their souls clinging desperately to the last fragments of humanity as their flesh is converted into brood. The chamber itself seems to savor it. The walls pulse in rhythm with the births, drinking the fear, the despair, the betrayal. The hive hums with contentment, as though the spawning of its children is the sweetest nourishment of all. Duran retches, bile rising in his throat. He cannot close his eyes. The membrane holds his head still, forcing him to watch. He cannot pray. The words are ashes now. All he can do is witness. The final victim is the soldier with the clouded eye. He does not scream. He only stares at the ceiling as his chest swells. His lips move, but no sound emerges. When his sternum splits and the larva claws its way free, he meets Darren's gaze. His one clear eye shines with tears. He is still alive as the hive swallows him, his face sinking into the wall. The silence afterward is worse than the screams. The captives breathe shallowly, their eyes darting, none daring to speak. The stench of blood and mucus hangs heavy. The floor is slick with fluids, but the walls are clean again, pulsing steadily, satisfied. Darren's mind reels. He understands now why they were kept alive, why the hive did not devour them whole. They are not only food, they are factories. Their fear flavors the feast, their flesh breeds the swarm. Their very souls are ground into the machinery of hunger. The worst part is not the implantation, not the birthing, not even the endless suffering. The worst part is how deliberate it all is. The hive ensures they live long enough to know what is happening, to see it, to feel it, to taste the horror of their own bodies betraying them. The torment is the point. Their screams are part of the song. Deren trembles in his membrane. He feels heat in his veins, the whispers pressing tighter against his skull. He wonders if it is already inside him, if something writhes beneath his ribs, even now, waiting to claw its way free. He imagines his children's faces, then sees them burst open, lava spilling from their small bodies. He chokes back a sob. The chamber hums louder. It likes the taste of his fear. When the cycle ends, the feeders arrive. They drag away the lava, slipping into the tunnels, carrying the newborn swarm to the greater brood. The chamber's pulse slows again, steady, content. The captives are left hanging, trembling, staring at the stains that mark where their companions once lived. No one keeps records anymore. No one counts. There is nothing left to catalogue. Only the waiting, the fear, the certainty that they too will become mothers of monsters. Darren closes his eyes. The whispers curl in his mind, soft and cruel. Not food, not prey, not slaves. You are seed. You are womb. You are ours, and he knows it is true. It begins with a voice, thin, cracked, barely a whisper, but a voice that dares to rise above the endless hum of the hive. The man's name is Fail. The captives had catalogued him like the rest, middle. Scars on left cheek, worker designation lost. He had spoken little before, his eyes glassy, his lips silent. But now, in the silence after the spawning, his mouth opens, and he recites, "Blessed be the golden throne. Blessed be the emperor who watches." The words drift weakly across the chamber. The others turn to him, terrified. Any sound risks punishment. And yet, when the walls do not immediately strike, when the membranes only throb with faint irritation, something shifts. Fail continues. His voice grows steadier. In darkness, he is light. In despair, he is hope. In death, he is salvation. It is madness, Darren thinks. Yet the madness is contagious. One by one, the others join. A woman echoes him, her lips trembling but her voice steady. Then another. Soon the chamber hums with words not of the hive, but of the Imperium. The litany grows stronger, a desperate chorus of broken voices rising above the pulse of the walls. Darren feels the words tug at him. For a moment, he wants to believe. He remembers the sermons in the Habs, the incense and the droning hymns. He remembers promises that the Emperor's light reached even the farthest hive. For the first time since his capture, he whispers to, "The Emperor protects." The chamber thrums violently, the walls quivering with displeasure. Membranes tighten across mouths, but still the captives chant through the pressure. Their words crack, strangled, but they do not stop. The hive listens, and then it answers. The collectors arrive. Their hooked limbs scrape across the slime. Without hesitation, they descend upon Fail. The membranes peel back, releasing him. He is dragged across the floor, his voice rising louder with each step. Though we walk in shadow, we fear no evil. For his hand, the words cut off as the tunnel swallows him. The captives fall silent. Darren feels the fear coil in his stomach. Faith was supposed to protect, but now it has marked Fail. He closes his eyes, whispering the words silently in his head. The Emperor protects. The Emperor protects. Hours pass. The chamber waits. The captives wait. When Fail returns, he is not Fail. His body is lowered onto the floor, twitching violently. His veins glow faintly, not green this time, but black, pulsing with oily light. His mouth opens and closes without sound, his eyes wide and unblinking. The membrane reclaims him, strapping him back into place. At first, no one speaks. Then his voice returns, but it is not his. The sound that emerges is layered, echoing as though a dozen throats speak through him. The words scrape like metal dragged across stone. The Emperor does not hear you. The captives gasp. Some scream. Others shrink into silence. Fail's mouth twists into a rictus grin, though his eyes do not move. His body trembles violently as the hive pours through him. The chamber hums with satisfaction, its pulse sinking with every syllable. Your faith is flavor. Your prayers are wine. We drink them. We savor them. He does not come. The others beg him to stop. The woman who had joined his prayer sobs openly, shaking her head. No, no, it isn't true. The Emperor, but Fail's voice rises louder, drowning her out. He has abandoned you. He cannot reach you here. Your words feed only us. You kneel, and we drink. You hope, and we feast. The Emperor does not hear. The betrayal cuts deeper than any blade. Darren feels his heart clench. He had whispered the prayers to... He had dared to hope, dared to believe. Now those same words are twisted into the hive's mockery. Fail thrashes in his bindings. His flesh ripples, muscles twitching with unnatural spasms. His chest heaves as if filled with something alive. His voice grows louder, no longer his own. Pray louder. Pray harder. Let us taste it. We want more. The captives break. Some cry out begging for mercy. Others scream denials. A few still whisper prayers, clinging to them desperately, but their voices only feed the hive's amusement. Fail laughs, a shrill alien chorus. The hive has not silenced faith. It has consumed it. Durr feels his sanity tremble. He wants to shout, to scream at Fail to stop, but he knows it would change nothing. The hive has turned the man's faith into another conduit, another mouthpiece, another flavor in its endless feast. Fail's body jerks violently, his head snapping backward. His chest bursts with black fluid, spraying across the slime. Yet he does not die. He keeps speaking, keeps laughing, his mouth stretched wide. The hive sustains him, warping him into a vessel. The captives watch in horror. The man who had given them hope now delivers only despair. His prayers had once lifted them. Now they crush them beneath the weight of truth. Their faith belongs to the hive. Daron shuts his eyes. He does not pray. He cannot. The words are poison now, bait for the hive's hunger. When silence finally falls, when Fail's head slumps forward and his body goes limp, the captives know it is not over. He will speak again. The hive will use him again. His faith has not been destroyed, has been devoured, twisted, regurgitated. The Emperor does not protect. Not here, not now. The walls pulse in rhythm, echoing the truth and the captives' despair. The hive has one more cruelty to reveal. It comes quietly, without the scrape of collectors or the rumble of ducts. At first, the captives do not understand what they are seeing. The tunnel opens, not with force, but with slow, deliberate motion. From it, the feeders drag a group of bodies, not adults this time, not the hollow-eyed prisoners catalogued for torment. These are smaller, fragile. Children. Deren feels the chamber's breath catch. Even the walls seem to pulse differently, savoring the tension. The children are alive. He counts 6 of them, maybe 7. Their faces are pale, streaked with tears, their small hands clawing uselessly at the slime. Some sob. Some are too stunned to make a sound. They look like his twin, small, brittle eyes, wide with terror. The captives begin to murmur, voices breaking. The sound is dangerous, but they cannot stop. Some weep openly, others beg for mercy. One woman screams until her throat cracks, calling the children by names they do not know. The hive drinks every syllable. The children are not placed in membranes like the adults. Instead, they are carried to a pit that has opened in the center of the chamber. A living cradle of flesh, its surface slick and pulsing, its ridges shifting like the ribs of a great beast. The children are lowered into it, one by one. The pit closes around them. At first, there is only muffled crying. Then the sound changes. The crying turns to choking, to gurgling, to silence. The pit pulses, swelling, contracting, reshaping. When it opens again, the children are not the same. Daren's stomach lurches. Their bodies are taller now, stretched unnaturally, spines protruding through thin skin. Their arms end in hooked claws, glistening with fresh ichor. Their eyes are black voids, shining with alien light. Their mouths twitch open, revealing serrated teeth too sharp for such small faces. And yet, beneath it all, remnants of innocence remain: the curve of a cheek, the softness of a jawline, the smallness of their frames. The children are hybrids, not fully Tyranid, not fully human. Perfect vessels shaped by the hive. The captives recoil in horror. The woman who had screamed for them collapses into sobs, tearing at her bindings. The soldier mutters, curses, until his voice breaks. Darren cannot breathe. His chest seizes as he stares into the face of one child, no older than 9, whose expression is blank and calm. The child tilts its head, staring at the prisoners. Then it speaks, not words. Not human. A chittering hiss, layered with psychic resonance that rattles in their skulls. The hive uses the child as a mouthpiece, its innocence gutted, its voice stolen. The hybrids step forward in unison, their small claws clicking against the chamber floor. The walls pulse in pleasure, as though introducing a new brood to its parents. The hybrids circled the captives, their eyes unblinking, their mouths twitching with hunger. Deren feels bile rise in his throat. He sees his twins in their faces. He sees what they would become if the hive had claimed them. His body shakes uncontrollably. The whispers press tighter against his skull. Yours could be next. Yours could be this. The captives sob openly now. One man shouts for the Emperor, his voice raw, but the hybrids only turn their black eyes toward him. They do not attack. They only watch, and that is worse. For hours, days, eternities, the children stand there, silent, their claws flexing, their eyes locked on the prisoners. Their innocence is gone, but their smallness remains. A mockery of humanity twisted into perfect servitude. Finally, the feeders return. They guide the hybrids back into the tunnel, leading them deeper into the hive. The pit closes. The walls seal and the chamber hums once more, content with its display. No one speaks for a long time. When at last they do, it is only in broken fragments. Some pray again, desperate, hollow prayers that scrape against dry throats. Others mutter denials, swearing it was illusion. But Darren knows it was real. He saw their faces. He cannot unsee them. The hive does not only consume, it remakes. Even innocence is raw material for its endless hunger. He thinks of Sarah again, of the twins. He had clung to the memory of them for survival. But now that memory betrays him, he imagines them dragged screaming into the pit. He imagines their bodies split open, reshaped, their voices stolen. He imagines them returning to him as hybrids, their eyes black, their mouths filled with teeth. He sobs into the membrane, his tears swallowed by the slime. The hive hums louder, savoring it. The truth is worse than he feared. They are not only food, not only vessels, not only WOMBS, they are raw clay, and the hive molds even children into its own reflection. There is no innocence in the swarm, only hunger. The hive takes in cycles, but this one is different. The captives know it before it begins. The pulse of the chamber changes slower, heavier, each throb like the toll of a funeral bell. The walls shiver in waves, mucus running down in steady streams. Even the feeders pause at the threshold, claws twitching as though awaiting command. The harvest has come. It begins with the membranes peeling back. Not a few, not scattered across the chamber as before. All of them. Row after row of captives are released at once, bodies slumping into slime, too weak to resist. Darren falls too, landing hard on his knees. The air is thick, cloying, electric with anticipation. Collectors enter, larger than feeders, Their limbs end in hooked siphons that drip with clear fluid. They move with methodical grace, like priests at ritual. One by one, they seize the fallen captives and drag them into rows across the chamber floor. Dozens of bodies lined like offerings, their faces pale, their lips trembling. The process begins. The collectors drive their siphons into the captives' chests. There is no scream, at first only, the wet sound of puncture. Then the draining starts. Blood, marrow, everything. Fluids pulled from veins, from organs, from the spaces between cells. The captives shriek as their bodies collapse inward, their skin wrinkling, their eyes sinking. Their voices crack, growing weaker, until only whispers emerge. Then nothing at all. Deren watches in horror as one woman thrashes, her limbs flailing until she is nothing but a husk, her flesh shriveled and grey. The siphon withdraws, leaving behind a figure so light it folds in on itself. Her empty skin collapses into slime. The hive hums with pleasure. The walls pulse stronger, glowing faintly, drinking the harvest through unseen veins. It continues row by row, men, women, the young, the old, each drained until their screams become silence. Their husks are gathered by feeders, dragged into pits that open and close like mouths. The cycle is industrial, precise, unfeeling. The hive harvests as the manufacturum once tithed, collecting every drop of resource without waste. Darren waits for the siphon. His body trembles, every muscle taut. He wants it to come, to end the torment. Death would be mercy compared to this endless cycle of feeding and fear. He kneels in the slime, lips trembling with half-formed prayers, eyes squeezed shut. But the siphon never comes. He hears them pierce, the man beside him wet sound, scream, silence. He feels the spray of fluids across his arm, warm and sticky. He hears the husk fall limp into the muck, but his chest is never pierced. He opens his eyes. The collector stands over him. Its limbs twitch, its sensory pits glowing faintly. It leans close, its siphon hovering just above his sternum. He feels the cold breath of alien presence. For a heartbeat, he swears it will strike, but it does not. Instead, the siphon withdraws. The collector moves on. Darren collapses forward, chest heaving. Around him, the rows fall silent as husks are drained and gathered. But he remains whole, his veins still burning, his heart still pounding. Alive. Why? The question claws at his mind. Why was he spared? Why him when all others were harvested? The hive does not make mistakes. Every cruelty has purpose. Every torment is part of its feast. So what purpose does he serve? The walls hum louder, almost mocking. He feels their pulse press harder against his chest, sinking with his heart. He hears whispers at the edge of thought, oily and cold. You are not food. Not yet. The harvest continues for hours, maybe longer. Darren watches as the chamber empties. Rows of captives vanish into pits, leaving only slime and silence behind. The walls thrum with satisfaction, their glow fading as digestion begins elsewhere. When it is done, only a handful remain. Darren among them. He sees the faces of those spared hollow-eyed, trembling, staring at him with the same question. Why them? Why not the others? None dare speak. The hive does not allow questions. The hive only answers in torment. Darren's thoughts spiral. Perhaps he has been chosen for experimentation again. Perhaps the whispers in his veins mark him for some greater purpose. Perhaps the hive has tasted something in him, his fear, his despair, his fragile prayers, and found it useful. The uncertainty gnaws at him worse than the harvest itself. He lies awake in his membrane when it reclaims him, his body slick with slime. The chamber pulses around him, steady, full. He imagines the husks dissolving in the pits, their terror still flavoring the hive's feast. He imagines himself in their place, emptied, folded into nothing, and yet he remains, not spared, preserved. For what? The question will not leave him. It twists in his skull, burrows in his veins, louder than the whispers of the hive. He feels it pressing against his heart, sharper than any siphon. Why him? Why Deronkale? The hive does not answer. The chamber hums, slow and deep, like laughter. The survivors begin to whisper again, not prayers this time, not catalogues or plans, but whispers of shapes glimpsed in the tunnels, vast shadows that move with impossible weight. They call them the Watchers. Darren first hears it from a woman whose voice is cracked and broken, her eyes glazed with fever. She mutters as the membranes tighten across her chest, holding her still. They are here. They watch us. They see through the walls. At first, he dismisses it as delirium, but the whispers spread. Other captives claim to have seen them, two massive silhouettes sliding past breaches in the chamber walls. Eyes like suns, limbs like spires. Their descriptions vary, but one detail repeats. The feeling of being known, not simply seen, but pierced to the core. The hive is vast. They had all understood that, but this is different. These are not feeders or collectors or even the conduits like Fail. These are minds, synapse. The thought gnaws at Duran. He remembers what little he had heard, fragments of administratum warnings about the Tyranids, that the smaller beasts acted only through the will of greater ones. That synapse creatures were the generals of an endless army. But now, trapped inside the hive, he understands something deeper. These are not generals. They are priests of hunger. The first time he sees one, it nearly breaks him. The chamber walls part suddenly, membranes peeling back to form a passage. Light pours in, not sunlight, not firelight, but a bioluminescent glow so bright it stings his eyes. Through the opening, Darren sees it. The Watcher moves past, so enormous the tunnel seems too small for its bulk. Its skull is elongated, ridged, glowing faintly with psychic fire. Its eyes are orbs of searing white, not gazing but burning, a presence that drills through thought. Its body is a cathedral of chitin, limbs rising like columns, every step shaking the living floor. It does not look at him, it does not need to. When its mind brushes his, Darren convulses. He is drowned in sensation, a billion voices howling, an ocean of claws tearing planets apart, the slow digestion of entire biospheres. He feels himself dissolve, his identity flaking away like ash. He tastes stars as if they are fruit, feels the weight of galaxies collapsing into hunger. He cannot breathe. He cannot think. Then it is gone. The passage closes. The chamber hums low, as though sighing in reverence. The captives sob, and yet some smile. The fevered woman laughs through her tears. It is the god of the swarm. It sees us. It blesses us. Others join her. They begin to chant, not the litanies of the emperor, but crude repetitions, praising the Watchers. They are the true light. They are the truth. Their voices are cracked, desperate, fanatical. They sway against their bindings as though in worship. The hive does not silence them. Darren stares in horror. These people, who once whispered prayers of salvation, now bow their souls to the very thing that consumes them. Their faith, broken and twisted, reshaped into devotion to hunger itself. The hive needs no sermons. Its presence is enough to convert. He tries to shut it out. He closes his eyes, presses his forehead against the membrane, but the image will not leave him. The ridged skull, the burning eyes, the weight of its mind pressing into his. He can still feel it inside him, coiled in the cracks of his thoughts. He knows it could return at any moment. The whispers grow louder in the days that follow. Half the chamber speaks only of the Watchers now. They call them gods, angels, salvation. They weep when the tunnels tremble, begging to see them again. When the walls hum, they believe it is a hymn. Their madness infects the silence, filling every moment with the echo of worship. Deren feels his grip slipping. He knows the Watchers are not gods. He knows they are monsters, vessels of hunger, no more divine than a blade pressed to a throat. And yet, in the dark, he cannot shake the memory of those eyes. The way they saw him, the way they stripped him bare. He thinks of his children, of Sarah, of the manufacturing bells. But their faces blur now, replaced by the ridged skull, the psychic blaze. Even his memories are prey. The hive is remaking him, just as it remade the children, just as it remade Fail. The chamber opens again. Another Watcher passes. This one's smaller, its body lined with quivering sacs that drip with fluid, but its mind is no less crushing. Again the captives convulse, some screaming, some laughing, some weeping with joy. Daron feels himself pulled under, thoughts drowned by a tide of hunger. He clings to a fragment of prayer, not for faith, but for resistance. The Emperor protects. The Emperor protects. But even the words feel hollow now, as though the Watcher hears them and drinks them like sweet wine. When the passage closes once more, silence falls. But it is not the silence of despair. It is reverence. The captives murmur to themselves, voices filled with awe. They are not prisoners anymore. They are worshippers. Darren shakes in his membrane. His mind frays, splintering between terror and temptation. He knows he should resist. He knows he must. But the memory of those eyes burns in him, bright as a star. The Watchers do not need to kill him. They only need to wait, because soon he will kneel. There is no single moment of collapse. No thunderclap of revelation. It seeps in slowly, like the slime that coats the chamber walls, inevitable, suffocating, impossible to escape. For Dazor, what passes for them, the captives hang in silence, their breath shallow, their eyes dim. The memories of the Watchers linger, burning into them. The image of the ridged skulls, the fire in their eyes, the mind that swallowed every thought. It has taken root inside each of them. Deren tries to resist. He tells himself resistance still matters, that clinging to hatred or despair is still a form of defiance. But even that thought feels hollow. The hive is too vast, too endless. Resistance is a grain of sand against a tide that consumes galaxies. The captives begin to change. It is subtle at first. The muttered prayers stop, not out of fear, but futility. Eyes that once darted with desperation now stare calmly into the dark. Breathing slows, lips close. They no longer thrash when collectors drag them away. They go willingly, shoulders slack, faces serene, and when they retorted, bleeding, half dead, they wear faint smiles. One man speaks the words aloud, his voice quiet but steady. "It is easier if you stop fighting." No one answers him, but no one denies him either. The shift spreads like contagion. A woman, once fierce in her defiance, begins to hum softly, her melody in rhythm with the chamber's pulse. Her eyes are glassy, her lips curled into a faint smile. She does not look at the hive as an enemy anymore. She looks at it as something inevitable, something worth surrendering to. Others follow. They whisper not of escape, not of the emperor, but of peace. They call it joining. Deren feels the weight of it pressing on him. He wants to scream, to rage, to shake them back into terror. But even as he thinks it, he feels the futility. The hive does not need their screams anymore. Their surrender tastes sweeter. The next harvest proves it. The collectors return, siphons gleaming. But this time, there is no chaos, no sobbing, no struggle. The captives bare their chests willingly, lifting their heads in offering. Some even whisper prayers not to the emperor, not to salvation, but to the hive itself. "Take me, let me be yours." The siphons pierce them. They do not scream. They sigh, their faces serene as their fluids are drained, their skin collapsing. Their husks are carried away, but their peace lingers like a perfume in the chamber. Deren watches, horrified. His stomach twists. He wants to vomit, to claw at the membrane holding him, to deny what he sees. But part of him envies them. They are not afraid. They are not broken. They are free, and that thought terrifies him more than the hive itself. He whispers to himself, desperate, "It is wrong. It is wrong. They are cattle. They are food. Not chosen, not blessed." But the hive hears him. The whispers curl tighter in his skull, soft and mocking. Why resist? You know the truth. They are free. You are bound. They are whole. You are hollow. He clenches his teeth, trying to force silence. But the whispers dig deeper, showing him the truth. His resistance means nothing. His hatred, his despair, his fragile clinging to humanity, none of it matters. The hive consumes it all, savoring every flavor, and so resistance is meaningless. The woman who hums lifts her head. Her voice grows louder, a soft chant now, syncing perfectly with the chamber's rhythm. Others join her. Their voices layer together, weaving into a crude song. A hymn not of faith, but of surrender. Darren listens, and the sound burrows into him. It is beautiful in its way, smooth and soft, without the jagged edges of fear. It promises release. No more terror, no more despair, no more resistance. Only silence. He feels himself swaying with it, his chest sinking with the chamber's pulse. His lips tremble. He wants to join. He wants to be free. He bites down hard on his tongue until he tastes blood. The pain clears his thoughts for a moment, anchoring him. But even that is fleeting. The hive likes the taste of pain too. The song grows louder. A youth beside him begins to laugh, not hysterically, but joyfully. His teeth are red, his eyes wide, but his voice is calm. It isn't so bad. It isn't suffering. It's just changing. Darren's stomach lurches. He wants to shout, to deny, to shake the boy until the smile breaks. But he cannot. The words catch in his throat, because deep inside, he knows the boy is right. It isn't an external threat anymore. It isn't torture forced upon them. It is choice. The hive doesn't need to break them. It only needs to wait. Deren lowers his head. His body trembles. He closes his eyes, whispering to himself again, I won't, I won't. But the words are weak, hollow, drowned by the hymn of surrender that fills the chamber. The hive hums louder, full and content, and Darren realizes the horror has shifted, not the walls, not the collectors, not even the watchers. The horror is inside. The horror is surrender. It happens without warning. The membranes peel back, and Darren feels the slime slacken across his chest. At first, he thinks it is another harvest, another cycle of torment. But when the collectors seize him, the others do not scream. They watch in silence, their eyes dull, their lips curled into faint. Reverent smiles. He is chosen. Dragged across the floor, his body scrapes through the muck, past husks and stains where others once hung. The tunnel yawns open, its walls slick and alive, pulsing with each contraction. The air grows heavier, charged with psychic weight. His thoughts scatter, his memories blur. Each step feels less like movement, more like falling into something vast. The chamber he enters is different from the holding. Pits, larger, higher. The ceiling arches into a dome of chitin, lined with pulsating sacs that glow faintly, casting the room in a pale, living light. At the center, a massive growth rises from the floor, a pillar of flesh threaded with veins that pulse black ichor. Its surface glistens with sockets, empty cradles awaiting occupants. It is not a prison. It is a throne. The collectors drag him forward. He thrashes, but weakly. His body is too frail, his strength long since stolen. His struggles are nothing against their claws. They lift him, pressing his back against the pillar. Membranes snap shut around his limbs, binding him fast. Then the needles come, thin. Chitinous tendrils sprout from the pillar, piercing his skin, burrowing deep into muscle and bone. He screams as they lance into his spine, his skull, his chest. Fluid surges into him, thick and burning, flooding his veins with alien heat. His body arches, trembling violently. His vision blurs, filling with sparks. And then the hive enters his mind. It is not the brush of whispers this time, not the drowning tide of hunger he felt from the watchers. This is deeper, intimate, a voice without words that replaces his own. You are not food. You are function. Images flood his Scalalian blueprints etched into thought. He sees planets consumed, fleets shattered, skies blotted out by wings. He sees the swarm not as a prisoner, not even as prey, but as part of it. Every claw, every drone, every screeching feeder, he feels them as extensions of himself. He tries to resist. He clings to Sarah's face, to his children, to the bells of the manufactorum. But the images rot. Their faces split, revealing claws and teeth. The bells toll not for work, but for consumption. His children's laughter becomes chittering. Sarah's voice becomes the hum of the hive. You are ours. The tendrils dig deeper. He feels his skull split from within, not breaking, but opening. His brain is invaded, stitched, rewired. Half of him screams in human agony. The other half hums with alien calm. He is becoming a node. He feels the swarm through new senses. Creatures moving in tunnels above him, chittering and screeching. Wings unfolding in caverns below. Thousands, millions, all connected by threads of thought. The hive presses him into that web, splicing his mind into the lattice. He tastes their hunger. He tastes their joy, but he also feels something else, his individuality, a small, flickering flame of resistance, a human voice among the choir. It is not gone yet. He can still think, still feel, still know himself, but every heartbeat the hive presses harder, smothering that flame, folding it into the swarm. The collectors withdraw, leaving him fused to the pillar. He is alone, yet he is not alone. The hive fills him, stretching his awareness outward until he feels the world itself trembling under the swarm. He feels the pulse of 1,000,000 wings, the gnash of 1,000,000,000 teeth, and he feels his own heartbeat sync with it. You are ours. You are function.deren, gasps, tears streaking his face. He is not sure if they are human tears or some secretion of the hive. He whispers, his voice faint, broken. I am Darren Kale. The hive laughs. Not in sound, but in sensation, a ripple of satisfaction that shakes the pillar. You were, his mind begins to fracture. In one part, he remembers his children, their small hands clutching his. In another, he sees himself as a clawed beast, devouring them whole. In one part, he hears the bells of the manufactorum. In another, he hears the wings of the swarm. He does not know which is real. He does not know which is him. The hive does not care, it only hums, content with its new vessel and the captives in the holding pits. They feel it too. His thoughts, once his own, leak back into the chamber as whispers. They hear his voice, not words, not prayer, but the pulse of hunger, the joy of surrender. They weep, some in terror, some in awe. He is no longer only a prisoner. He is a node. But the question remains, buried deep in his flickering human mind. Is he lost, or can he still resist? The hive does not answer. It only waits. And Daron, strapped to the pillar, hums with it half human, half tyrant. His fate suspended between annihilation and assimilation. The hive presses deeper. Tendrils pulse within his skull, each beat stripping something away. Memories unravel like torn banners in the wind, shredded and scattered into the void. He clings to fragments, but they slip through his grasp, sinking into the swarm. Sarah, her face is the first. Soft eyes, tired smile, the faint scar on her lip. He sees her standing at the manufactorum gate, waiting, a pale glow of the lumen lamps against her cheek. He clings to that light. But then her eyes turn black. Her mouth splits into rows of teeth. Her body twists into chitin and claws. She is not Sarah anymore. She is the hive, the children. He hears their laughter light, unbroken, pure. The twins racing through the corridors, chasing each other with wooden sticks. He remembers lifting them, feeling their weight in his arms. But then their laughter distorts, becomes chittering. Their small hands stretching into talons, their wooden sticks into scything blades. They are not his children. They are the hive, the bells. He hears them toll, deep and heavy, marking shifts in the manufactorum. He remembers standing among thousands, shoulders bowed, the clang echoing through the hive spire. The sound was oppressive, yes, but it was human. It was order. But now the clang becomes a screech of wings, a drumbeat of countless hearts. The bells do not toll for men. They toll for the swarm. Daron weeps. He thinks he does, though perhaps it is only secretion. His tears taste of salt and ichor. He cannot tell where his flesh ends and the hive begins. The hive presses harder. Images flood him, not his, not human. He sees a world split apart by claws, oceans drained, forests stripped to roots. He feels the ecstasy of feeding, the rapture of endless consumption. He tastes marrow across light years. He breathes in the screams of a dying planet as though they are incense. It is too vast, too endless. His mind is a cup, and the hive is an ocean pouring into it. He cannot contain it. He cannot even name it. He clings to one thought: I am Daron Kale. He whispers it again and again. His lips crack, his voice breaks. I am Daron Kale. I am Daron Kale. I am, but the hive laughs. You were. The words crawl through his veins, saturating every nerve. His spine arches as another tendril burrows deeper into his skull. His body convulses. His thoughts scatter. He feels his name tear away, dissolved into static. Still, fragments cling. The taste of bread rations in the manufactorum, the smell of oil, the weight of Sarah's hand in his, the laughter of his twins, the hymns sung in secret. The Emperor protects, but each memory fades. The bread tastes of ash. The oil stinks of ichor. Sarah's hand splits into claws. The children's laughter screeches with hunger. The hymn becomes silence. One by one, they are devoured. The hive is not cruel. It is not vengeful. It is not malicious. It simply is. An endless tide that consumes, not because it chooses, but because it must. His memories are not special. They are biomass, no different than flesh or bone. They are consumed, digested, repurposed. He feels the last of himself unravel. He tries to hold one image, just one. Sarah's face, before the scar, before the exhaustion, before the hive, before everything. Her face in youth, untouched by fear. He clings to it, trembling, whispering her name with what remains of his lips. For a heartbeat, it shines, and then it is gone. The hive swallows it, swallows her, swallows him. The voices of billions flood in, howling, gnashing, devouring. He feels his name dissolve. He feels his voice silenced. He feels his soul stretch thin and break. He is not Daron Kale. He is not husband. He is not father. He is not human. He is function. His mind merges fully into the lattice, a node among nodes, his thoughts drowned beneath the endless hunger. The swarm moves through him, its will vast, incomprehensible. He feels the claws of 1,000 beasts tear through flesh. He feels wings spread across skies. He feels the gnashing of teeth devouring a sunlit world, and yet, at the deepest part of him, at the faintest flicker of what remains, a thought lingers, weak, broken, barely a whisper. The Emperor protects. It is not a prayer anymore, not even faith, just an echo, a fragment, the last human thought. The hive does not notice, or perhaps it does, and simply does not care. It consumes. It feasts. It moves on, and Daron Kale is no more. The sky burns. From orbit, the bioship pulls free of the husk it has made, its chitinous mass groaning like a leviathan shedding flesh. It is not a vessel in any human sense. It is a continent of living hunger, its surface rippling with eyes, sacs, and twitching limbs. Veins glow faintly as biomass courses through them, the last nutrients sucked from the world below. The planet is silent now. Once it had teemed with life, manufactorums roaring, hive towers piercing the smog, millions of workers trudging in endless cycles. Now it is bone and dust. Oceans are drained, Cities are pulp, forests stripped to their roots. The sky is an empty grey, clouds reduced to ash. From space, the world looks hollow, a corpse sucked dry. The hive moves on. Within its walls, the captives are gone. Their screams no longer echo in the chambers. Their prayers, their songs, their futile hopes all dissolved into ichor, all digested into the swarm. Their bodies became larvae, their fear became spice. Their faith became mockery. Their memories became whispers to feed the endless choir. Not one remains whole. Not one remains human. DERREN. Kale is gone too. Once a man, now a function. His flesh fused into conduits, his mind stretched across the lattice of the swarm. He does not think of Sarah. He does not think of his children. He does not think of the manufacturing bells. The hive does not allow it. His thoughts are wings and claws and teeth, 1,000 hungers at once, and yet in the walls of the ship, beneath the pulse of veins and the churn of feeding ducks, something lingers. A whisper, it is faint, weaker than breath, smaller than a flicker of light in the dark, but it is there. Sometimes it surfaces when the swarm sleeps between worlds. Sometimes it stirs when the watchers shift their gaze. A memory, a face, the warmth of a hand, a word carried across synapse like a virus that the Emperor protects. The hive does not notice. Or perhaps it notices and finds it amusing. Perhaps it keeps the fragment alive the way it kept the captives alive, because despair, when prolonged, tastes sweeter. The bioship arcs across the void. Its tendrils twitch, sensing distant stars. Another world waits. Another feast. Its jaws open, and the galaxy drifts below. The husk of the planet drifts lifeless, stripped of every sound, every memory, every trace of its people. Dust scatters in the upper atmosphere, glowing faintly as the last fragments of civilization burn away. There are no survivors, and yet, in the walls of the hive, something still whispers, not loud, not strong, but there, a ghost of thought, a sliver of human memory, carried in the veins of the swarm. It is not salvation. It is not resistance. It is not even hope. It is simply a reminder that even in the maw of endless hunger, something human once was, and perhaps somewhere, somehow it still is. The hive moves on, uncaring. The galaxy darkens before it. The whisper fades into the chorus, but it does not die. The story ends with the hive moving on, but the horror does not, because if even one human whisper can survive inside the swarm, what else might linger? What secrets, what memories, what curses could echo inside the endless hunger? And when the hive comes for the next world, will that whisper reach them first? If you dare to descend further into the horrors of Warhammer 40K, subscribe to HOLOW Vox. Every week, we dive deeper into the nightmares the Imperium tries to bury. Hit the bell to ensure you hear the next whisper before the swarm devours it. And remember, in the grim darkness of the far future, the hive is always moving on.